everyone, Ernie Tech here. I have probably made this video, my gosh, it's got to be 7 times so far. And every time I make it, I realize that there's more to know, and there's more I should put in here. It's just that dense of information, and yeah, it's a little complicated. It's much more complicated in general than Music SP because, of course, we are using Music SP in a very or in an environment organized just for Music SP. That was the Sim 390. In this case here, we're using Hercules, and we are running an operating system that is different, to say the least. But anyway, MTS is a different animal, and I think it's well worth our time to fool around with it because, as I have said before, we're going from the easiest stuff up the ladder to the toughest stuff, and we're somewhere in the middle right now. All right, assuming that you followed along in the last two videos and you know what to download and how to install it, we're going to need to start Hercules and then crank up two instances of the terminal emulator. And you'll notice that I've changed the text color on things just to be a little easier to read and for fun. So I like this nice ectoplasm green over here. So you're at the command prompt, you're at the location where we've put our whole turnkey system for MTS, and all we have to do now is, excuse me, need more coffee? Mm-hmm. Always need coffee to do this stuff. MTS, and off we go. And it starts up quick. This is just Hercules. You have the command line and the pretty view. And I've made it ectoplasm green because I like ectoplasm green. All right. Oh, notice this right here, that this one CPU that I've established is stopped. It will start when the operating system gets up and running. Everything right now is in a do nothing mode. Here's everything that's been defined as far as the various and sundry pieces of hardware hanging off the side of this thing. All right, let's go over here. Now I'm going to be using try-MTS, try-mts.com as my main source of direction for this. I've been using it all along. I found a few other ones, a few other notes and various things. One of them is from a website called ldx.ca. I don't know exactly who that is. I think his name is Tim Williams, but it's not clear, and it kind of goes all over the place. But it's a good assistance. It's a good adjunct to what Rupert has done. So we'll put that in the description as well. All right, follow along on this because there is a 50-50 chance that it's going to fail for various and sundry reasons. And we'll hope that it doesn't. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to crank up the operator console. Notice it's now pretty turquoise. I've changed the color here by changing some of the session files. I'm going to create a video, look at the next one, where I'm just going to talk about customizing the DOS environment, or DOS, or the command line environment, and the terminal emulator window to make it prettier and easier to see and things like that. So let's start it up. In Hercules, we type in IPL 260. That's where it starts. We answer the questions along the line here, yes. If it says, why do you want to do this? You say, for fun. That seems reasonable. The cancel part here, you can use your keypad or just press PA2 and that'll cancel it out, as you can see right there when it asks you about offline devices. Wait for the message that says peak initialization complete. That's where we need to be. It takes about 15 seconds, and here it comes right there. Peak initialization complete. All these other processes have been either completed or whatever the case may be. Okay, couple of things here. There's some shortcuts that I have learned, have been made aware of, and makes it easier to do things. You can type anything you want down here. But there's a couple of ways. If you hit the certain key, you can automate that process. The first thing we're going to type in is HASP, which stands for the Houston Automation or Automatic Spooling Program. It's a batch interpreter, a batch processor that was written for the space program back in Z-Day. We got to do that first, get that up and running. All right, over here it says, yeah, okay, we're running. What do you want to do with me? And if I just press F2 in the console window, it'll put in the appropriate prompt. You could type it yourself, but you don't have to. Just type in HSP, and that means that HASP is starting and it's ready to accept commands or jobs, as it were. Now, at this point, I'm going to crank up another instance, and that instance of the terminal window is going to be my remote login screen. I'm just going to put it over here for now. Oh, this would be where you would interact with the system if you were a user. If you're out there in the school library or the administrator's office or wherever the case you may be, that's this. This over here is the operator console, and you can change this. I may do all this kind of stuff here. There's so much to do. It's not even funny. All right. We're still in the operator console. We're going to hit F2 again, and we're going to type in LAS, which is going to start the process of allowing remote terminals to communicate. I think the term they called it was let out the lines, if that's what they called it. And there it is. Now, technically, what we need to do next over here is we need to allow the spooler to take jobs. So we now type in $release EX, and that means that the spooler is up and running, and you can do things and all that kind of stuff. This is what we're going to use for now. This didn't happen. There is a possibility that if you try this, that you'll get a message in white that says something to the effect, I need a tape mounted. And the reason for that, as I understand, is that instead of wasting space in the system with log files and message responses, whatever the case may be, or even that thing where you put in your name, your initials, and why you started it, instead of collecting tons and tons of data on the system, on a very expensive online memory, you really want to push it to offline memory. So it'll ask you to mount a tape. Now, it won't stop the system, but you won't be able to do anything until you do it. You won't be able to, at the operator console, anything you type in probably gives you an error. So there in the description, there is a way in which to do that. Very, very simple. You just say OK, and then a couple of parameters, the name of the tape that you created, the tape at once, and then which machine. It's not complicated, but it has to be done. But right now, it hasn't given me any errors, so I'm just going to minimize these two guys and concentrate on this. Couple of things to think about. In Music SP, you logged in, you wound up in your environment very similar to this, where you had your files, your private files, just the ones you could get to. And then there were other files in the system. They were public files. They were available to you, although you couldn't necessarily see them or modify them, but they were available to you. It's similar like in the path on DOS or something. Not too different here. There's different kinds of users. The main two users are the shared system user IDs and the private user IDs. You log in as a private user ID. Generally ST00 to ST09, and then there's a different one that I'm not 100% sure what the difference is. It goes up to 99. Your files are your files, and nobody else can see them unless you give them permission. The other thing is that it's a flat file directory. There you don't have directories. You don't have subdirectories. Everything's in one big bucket. So you learn how to create files in a file structure using delimiters like periods and things like that. All right, let's log in here. Sign on, and it's ST01. That's the user. Four characters for the user ID. If you put in 3, it'll append a $sign or something to it. So generally 4 characters will do the trick. Enter the password. The password is the same as the user ID. And this is all you see at first. What I have said in the past, and I think this is the way to do things when you're dealing with computers, is that if there is a help facility, no matter what it is, if you're not aware of it, or if you're new to some environment, no matter what it is, some piece of software, some operating system, whatever, always take advantage of any help facility. Some are great, some are not so great. This is pretty good. Not quite as intuitive and interactive as Music SP, but it's here. So let's just take a look at it to start with. Now, the way the help facility works is, again, it's different than Music SP. Music SP had this full screen interface environment where you could move your cursor around and then drop it on a line somewhere and press the enter key and things would work. This is not the case here. In this case here, you have to be down here at the topic selection. It has to be right about there. And then in the red are the different items. So if I want to have a look at, let's say, the MTS command menu, I put in 4, number 4. And you know it's in the right spot when it turns green. If I were to move it out of the way in the wrong spot, see how it says X protected at the bottom there? What it's saying is that that's an area of the screen you can't play in, so don't play in there. And so when I move it to the right location, turns green. And here is your command menu. You can get information about anything you like. Let's say I want to get some information about a command called create, which we're going to get into. I put in number 8. It says, all right, use the create command to create and name a place where you can store information inside the computer, just if you were creating a file in a filing cabinet. Now, all it's saying is use the create command to create a file. Big deal. So this is the help facility. It allows you to dig into all the different features and all the different programs available to you, the commands available to you, and not quite as intuitive as Music SP, but it's there for your use. To get out of this thing, Alt-PA1, we'll just use this here so I can show you. And I click on that and it takes you right out of the facility and back to the command prompt. Because this is a flat file system or a flat directory system and you don't have subdirectories, you need to be a little creative about how you name your files. Now in Rupert's try-mts.com, he uses a file called alpha, which I may probably already have here, which I do. Now I'm going to get rid of this first. And we're going to use a command called destroy. Now I'm going to spell it wrong on purpose. Destroy alpha. Now watch this. See, the system's smart enough to know that you probably misspelled it. So what it has is probably about 10 different definitions of what a misspelled destroy is. So assuming destroy for Detroit, yes. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes. All right, now if I do an F5 for file information status, whatever, nothing is there. We're going to create a file, and you'll see how rudimentary this can be, which in some respects is kind of refreshing. It's kind of fun. So watch this. There are pseudo files as well. What a pseudo file is, or a pseudo file, is that what they call it? That's what I call it. You can take something like, say, your keyboard and use that as a source. So if I want to copy everything that I'm typing in real time into a file, I can just define that. Like we have the same facility in other operating systems. But watch this. Copy, asterisk, source, asterisk, alpha. Before I go on, you may see documentation showing a $sign in front of commands, like putting a $sign in front of copy, but it's not always necessary. So just type in the command, press the enter key. You'll get this caret, and all that's saying is anything you type at the keyboard is being put in line by line into a file called alpha. So if I say, hello world, oops, my bad. Here's what we have to do. We have to create the file first. Have a look at that, though. This is good because we can see the little mistake that I made. I had destroyed alpha the file, but then I went and tried to write from using the copy command sourcing from the keyboard to alpha. However, alpha didn't exist, so what I need to do is create that first. So create alpha. Now I can do that. Alpha by itself is just a text file. You can, using options on the command line, decide how big it needs to be or whether it's sequential or line oriented. You can be more specific, but in its natural state, that's all you need to do. Now if I type copy source alpha, then it says, well, okay, now let's try this again. Hello world. And another line. How's it going? Fine. You just keep on going as long as you want. And how to get out of this, you put in $, end file, and it takes you back to the pound command prompt. Now if I type in FI, I have one file called alpha. If I want to list what's in alpha, I can type in FI or LI alpha, and it will slowly list whatever is in there. So that's the very elements about file management inside of this thing. No subdirectories, generally line oriented. You have a lot more options as far as editing and so on, but that's using different commands. This is essentially what you have without going very far. Okay, that all being said, um, let's play around a little bit with this. If I want to run a process from another location from a shared user ID process, a program that's available to us, I do it this way. I put in the command run, an asterisk, and then the name of that program or batch file or whatever it is that we have as available to us. So let's say I say coin flip. That is a program that's available to us. Tells you when it begins. Coin flip says, do you want an explanation of the game? Sure. And it's going to try to predict the outcome of a flip of an imaginary coin. If it guesses incorrectly, $1 will be added to your score. So, hey, we're going to make money here. Let's just say, let's flip the coin by depressing the H key. And let's see what it says to me. All right, so I won $1 by saying heads. Now let's try heads again. Now I got nothing because I lost $1. Let's try heads again. All right, I won because it was heads for me. It's $1. Well, what if I want to say, well, what did you think it was going to be? Well, you thought it was heads as well. However this thing works doesn't matter, but this is how you interact with other programs that are available to you in the system. That's all I want to get into today. I just wanted to show you how this is so much different than Music SP in terms of your interaction. And it'll be substantially different from MVS as we get down to that point. But this is the second system in the series which lets you get a little bit more complicated or a little bit more rudimentary depending how you look at it. And there's a ton of stuff. I mean, this thing was a very popular operating system. Just as a kind of a little story on the side, it's very, very funny. I have a friend that went to Rensselaer Polytechnic, and I was visiting him, or we were out at lunch, or whatever we were doing, a bunch of guys. And I said, hey, I'm getting into MTS now. And he looked at me, he said, well, thank God I don't have to work with that anymore. Because back in the, I guess in the early 80s, maybe late 80s, or not, whenever it was, maybe late 70s, whatever the case is, this apparently was the operating system that was used by Rensselaer for its students, or however it was done. We didn't get into the details, but he was familiar with it. He didn't like it, and he's a big Linux guy. Actually, he's a big Mac guy, and he just laughed and went back to eating his fries. And I said, well, you know, I like to torture myself. He didn't want to get involved. What are you going to do? Okay, let's get out of here. All I have to do now is just say sign off, and it takes me right out. Now watch this. It says here's what you've been doing, how long you've been on. We're not charging them anything, and hey, you still got $1,000. Isn't that great? I wish you could cash that in, but I can't. So MTS just sits there on the screen waiting for somebody else to come along and use it, the device ID, the task ID, and so on. I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to get back to a Hercules environment, and I'm going to get back to the command prompt. And now we're going to shut her down. And hopefully she shuts down nicely without any grief. We'll see. Notice that it has not asked me for a tape, and that's because I haven't really done enough to fill up the log files or, give it 92 different reasons for why I started it to begin with. But over here on the operator console, we're going to start by shutting some things down. One of the things I want to do is I want to hold execution of any batch files. So over a little blinking light there, I'll put in, I'm trying to do this from scratch without having to go back and look at it. Hold execution. Okay, that worked out good. Thank you. The next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of anything that is essentially living in the queue, meaning is there anything in the job spool? Because if there's anything in the job spool, I want to get rid of them. So I'm going to drain the system. I like the names of things, the drain the system. I think that's pretty cool. And it should say OK. Yeah, it does. All right. Now I'm going to shut down all connections and the system. So let's bring the whole thing down. And this takes about 15 seconds. And you'll see over here on the Hercules side what it's doing. So let it shut down. Bum-ba-dum-ba-dum. It will shut down. It just takes a while. I think some people might be tempted just to hit the button and let it run, but that's not the way to do things. All right, shut down all complete. Just for fun, go over here to the Hercules window and let's press the escape key. And notice over here at CP00 is still running. So Hercules is not down. Hercules is still running, but we need to shut Hercules down. So if I go over here, have I press the escape key, and I can shut that down. But very quickly, I'm going to go back to the command line or back to the operator console, and I'm going to type in /TM, and that will tell me if any jobs are still running in the MTS environment. And so nothing is running. The specified job is not found. The specified job is actually MTS. It's not just like, HASP or something else. The actual job that this thing is running is MTS. The operating system is considered a job. And now we go back over to Hercules, and we're going to shut down. We're going to turn off. We're going to turn off, shut down, stop the CPUs. So we'll say stop all. Watch this. And it didn't complain. And if I go back over using the escape key to the pretty view, notice that CP00 is stopped. So essentially it's down. It's pretty much done. And then I can safely type in quit and watch. Everything goes away. That's the whole process. That's the beginning to the end. A little bit about how you get at the very rudimentary operating system, a little bit about the files, the help facility, and so on. Shows you how different this is than Music SP. Very different, actually. I still like Music SP a lot, and I like this a lot too. I tend to gravitate towards the academic systems. That's just me. All right, there you are. In the description, I'll put in a bunch of links and whatever we needed to follow along with this. And remember, we're using Rupert Lane's trymts.com, try-mts.com website, and we're also using the ldx.ca MTS notes, which between the two of them pretty much give everything in a nice clear way. All right, thanks for subscribing. Please subscribe if you haven't. The comments are fantastic. Keep them coming, and I'll talk to you soon. All righty, bye for now.